Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Indie Game Movement, the podcast that talks about the marketing and business of indie games. I'm Andrew Pappas. I'm going to be your host today, and this is episode 288, where we're going to be talking about tackling your mission while taking on side quests. Now, when it comes to running a studio or creating a game, it's essential to be focused on your core mission. However, sometimes we get too caught up in the details of making that happen, we end up missing out on life-changing experiences and valuable opportunities. So today, our guest shares her experiences of how taking on side quests not only helped drive her studio's goals, but created numerous opportunities, successes, and personal growth that likely wouldn't have been possible if she only focused on her main mission. So that's what we're going to be talking about right here today on Indie Game Movement. Hey everybody, and we're back, and today with us I have Philomena Schwab of Schwab Studio. Philomena, how's it going, and thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, good. Thanks.
Awesome. Glad to hear you're doing well. Now, what I wanted to do real quick, folks, is introduce Philomena here. And if for those of you who aren't familiar with her, like I said, she's one of the co-founders of Schwab Studio with Micah Stetler, correct?
Micha Stetler. Yeah, if
Mika.
you say it in Swiss German. Micha. Can you do it?
Micha.
Very good.
All right.
Very good.
I
Now next you say Kuchikästli.
Oh, wow. That's...
Very good. Now you speak Swiss German.
Wow, that's all it takes, folks. All right. And with Micha, you guys founded the studio in 2016. So we're what at 6 years now, or getting there, right?
Yeah, this week is the 6th birthday party.
This week, wow. So, all right. Well,
Yeah.
congrats on 6 years.
Thanks.
That's quite an accomplishment. And with the studio, you guys are fairly small in the grand scheme of things. I mean, currently it's about what, a 10-person team?
Yeah, 10 people.
Nice. And what's really new and exciting is that you just launched The Wandering Village, which is in early access. It was launched, I think, mid-September. And if I remember correctly, you guys sold over 100,000 copies within the first week, correct?
Yes.
And it was doing really well. It keeps doing well. I mean, obviously, things died down a little bit after that first week, but still going strong. But to help out with that, a year or so before the early access is you also had a successful Kickstarter campaign for the game too, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And with all that going on and everything else, prior to The Wandering Village, you guys made 3 games to date, and the other 2 are Niche, which is a genetic survival game, and Nibatis, which is kind of like a action survival simulator, correct?
Correct. And we also made like a small side project, which is a niche mobile game, which is kind
yes.
of similar to the PC game, but it's a new game with kind of a little bit more casual approach while still keeping the genetic system super complex. So yeah, that was kind of I would say 3.5 games.
Okay, nice. So some games under your belt, and the more recent one being extremely successful, or as I'm saying it sounds like it was extremely successful, but
Yeah, for us too. Like the game sold in 1 month. It made more money than our second game made lifetime. So I
wow,
would
okay,
also
yeah.
say that for us at least, it was very successful. It recouped now its whole development budget after 2 months, and this was only the early access release, so I'm sure it will do very well over lifetime.
Excellent. Yeah, so really making some good strong strides moving forward. And and this too, outside of these core focuses that you have for your studio and everything else, and working on all these games and future projects and such, there's a lot of other things that you've kind of done on the side, which is really, folks, this is the whole reason why this introduction's a bit lengthy and different is because it really leads into our conversation, which we'll get into in a moment. But like, you have done a lot of other things outside of these great achievements, which is, and I would love for you to elaborate on a few of these things in a moment. But like, you're also the Kickstarter community or member on the advisory council. You're a Wings selection committee member of that, which great organization.
Hmm.
Also, the Swiss Game Hub co-founder, and in 2017, just 1 year after you guys founded Strafon, you were named Forbes 30 under 30, which is an awesome accomplishment to have. And on top of all these things too, you're doing like numerous talks and presentations. One you actually did earlier this month. Time of recording, we're in November of 2022. It was one talking about broadening a game's audiences with smart difficulty, which if anybody is familiar with it or hasn't seen it, you should check it out. We'll link it to the show notes. But my point being here is you do lots of other different things, not necessarily associated with that. And so it's like, again, that's kind of what we're going to talk about. But I'd love for you to share with us kind of what your roles are with those organizations and kind of what those organizations represent or what they do.
Hmm. So for the Kickstarter Council, they formed it, I think about 6 months ago or so.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically a bunch of people. I'm the representative for video games, and there's one like for each discipline. And so we sit together on like a monthly or so basis and talk about what needs to be improved about the platform. We gather feedback from people that are currently running campaigns. So if you're running a game campaign or if you're planning to run one and something isn't working, then please reach out to me and I will like collect all the feedback and forward it to Kickstarter. That's my role there. And then for the Wings Fund, I'm in the selection committee. So that basically means, sorry, that games get submitted to us from different developers, and then the committee looks at them and like rates them based on if they think that they would work, like be a good fit for the fund, and if they would be profitable for the fund, and so on. So that has been really interesting to see like all these games, their budgets, their marketing plans, play
Mm.
the demos. So this has been one of my favorite parts of the week whenever the new Wings games come in and I review them. Yeah, for the Game Hub, like Switzerland has, I would say, a bit of a struggling game scene. We don't have a lot of funding and stuff.
Mm.
So it's pretty small, and most of the people that are starting a team are juniors, like fresh out of university, because we don't have big studios where they go work and then like start their own studio after that. So they need a bit of input. Otherwise, the chances of them not being successful is higher than when you worked like than when you have work experience, right, from
Right.
a
Yep.
bigger gaming studio. So we started the co-working space 3 months before the pandemic started. Worst possible time to start a co-working space in
Ugh.
human history. No, not in human history, but in the recent few years, I would say. And yeah, then it's basically just a non-profit organization founded by us and two other game studios. So we basically just had to pay our own rent for 2 years, which was it was so stupid. Like we rented an extra big space with additional rooms, and then nobody could work there. But now, finally, like now since a few months, a lot of people have moved in, and it's now the building with the most game developers in Switzerland in one place. So
Nice.
I'm very proud of that, and it's very cool because there's a lot of exchange. Like you don't have to set up meetings; they just happen while you're, I don't know, out to grab dinner, and then you have a question to somebody you can just ask. I really, really like that, and like the mood is very cool. And we also do like regular events where we play test each other's games. So I think it has been really beneficial for everybody. I've also been a member of the Swiss Game Developers Association for 10 years
Mm.
to
Right.
like to help with political activity, see that we get said missing funding that
Mm.
I mentioned earlier, and also like doing the Swiss Game Award and stuff. And we're also currently starting our own publisher. So yes, I am very distracted. Definitely distracted.
Lots of distracted, but we'll call it we'll call it like controlled distraction, perhaps,
Hmm.
or to a
Sometimes.
degree, yeah, sometimes. But still, it's absolutely amazing with how much you're doing, how involved you are with in lots of different um, facets and such. So, and again, folks, we're going to talk about this in a minute, but before we do, okay, you're doing a lot. What do you do, if at all, when you have free time? How do you unplug? How do you enjoy yourself when you're not necessarily doing lots of lots of things?
So in the summer, I go swimming a lot. So usually you have to take me away from the computer because if I'm at the computer, you can be sure, and from my phone, because otherwise you can be sure people will find a way to get me back to work. Because there's like, I don't know, I'm like when I'm like, okay, now I'm focusing on doing our games balancing. And then I turn off like my mail and I don't know, Twitter and Discord, and then people find like another way to ping me and they're like, dang, I have to turn this off, and then they find another way to ping me. So I would like to have like a program where I can switch all availability off at once. That would be helpful. So it always takes some time to like step back and become unavailable.
And
Now I
swimming is a
forgot what.
great way for that to happen.
Yeah, absolutely, because then you're underwater, and thankfully my phone is not waterproof, so I'm alone. I also really like reading and audiobooks.
Mm.
And yeah, what else do I like? I really like singing karaoke
Ah, yep.
and yeah, playing games. But yeah, then it's kind of hard to not get pulled back into thinking about it from a strategic perspective. So
Yeah.
I was just playing Cult of the Lamp over the weekend. And then I was like, oh yeah, they did this. And oh, and how could we like get this graphic tweak into our game too? So it feels a little bit like work, but usually it's still relaxing.
Well, that's good. I mean, and it's kind of funny, and that's just how some of us are too. Like, just I can relate in a lot of ways. I'm sure a lot of you people listening today can. There's always something churning in the background, right? You,
Hmm.
no
Hmm.
matter what. And
Yeah.
but still, you do your best to unplug, and those are some really good ways to go about doing that. Like, I. Hey, and plus, if you were so connected where you'd have to go swimming, well, with like an underwater phone and headphones, I don't know. I think then maybe
Yeah.
maybe there's some like checks that need to be done to make sure here. I, m-
Oh yeah, one more thing.
yeah.
I'm also learning Japanese since 5 years, and I still can't properly read children's books, so I'm doing something wrong. But like mangas are okay.
Ah, okay. Now you're really motivating me because I'm sure I shared this before with a few times on the show, but I have went to Japan to learn Japanese Nihongo, and but
Mhm.
I can just maybe pick up a word or two if I'm lucky, like
Mm.
to read. So I don't know, but now you're motivating me because you're like I'm pushing to read children's books, and I'm like I've never even pushed myself that far, at least outside of when I learned the language. So, anyways, but that's awesome
Not
because
cool. So
it's
like a lot of games I also like, so the new Pokemon game, I've played too many Pokemon games. I'm like, I can't play another Pokemon game, but now I'm playing it in Japanese, so it counts as language learning.
see that's what I need
But
to do. So that's
yes.
awesome, and I'm sure it's a bit different of an experience too, because I mean, sometimes some words don't directly translate and such, or
Hmm.
the context and everything else is different. So
Absolutely.
I love it. I love it. So still doing so many other things on top of all these other things. But before we get into our discussion, I need to ask you some really random questions. And everybody else, I'm sure you're familiar with what it is, but it's the Q box round. And for those of you who don't know, it's just a series of random questions I have prepared here for Philomena. So, Philomena, are you ready for the Q box round?
Let's go.
All right. Um, what was your favorite subject in high school?
Biology. Definitely biology. And maybe like informatics, but it was very basic.
Ah, okay.
And maybe German, because I really like writing stuff too. But I
Mm.
think the winner's biology.
All right. I'll go with that one. What's your favorite movie of all time?
Probably Princess Mononoke by Studio Ghibli.
I need to see that one again. Actually, it was funny. I recently, by chance, started watching Nausicaa of the
Oh,
Valley of the Wind, and
very good.
that's the first time I seen it was years ago, and I still can't recall how many movies I've seen that are so it's not so old, but it is, but that still
Hmm.
hold up to this day. It
Hmm.
actually reminded me of the original like Cowboy Bebop.
Hmm.
Like when watching it to this
Absolutely.
day, I'm like, wow, this thing still holds up remarkably, and so does
Mm.
Nausicaa. But then right after that, I was like, I gotta watch Princess Mononoke, and because I'm trying to get my kids on board with Ghibli. So anyway, sorry, I digress
Oh,
here.
you will do that, I'm sure.
Oh, I
I
have,
also
yeah.
really you have already?
Oh yeah,
Ah,
no,
very good.
like I the first one I've never seen My Neighbor Totoro, so
Hmm.
I that was the first one I played. HBO Max, folks, it has all the Ghibli content. So if you're looking for a streaming service, that's one. And I put it on, and I don't know what it was, but all my kids, every one of them from age like 1.5 all the way up to 9, were just glued to the TV. And my daughter, was like, "That was the best movie ever." And I
Aw,
don't know what it was, but she's like, "Can we watch it again?" And I was like,
aw,
"Yeah." And they were just so calm, and everybody was like, it's I don't know. It was amazing. I
very
digress here,
good.
but yes, I have started doing it, and I'm purposely putting them on all the time, even in the background, and it's fun for me as well. But anyways, Princess Mononoke was your favorite movie of all time. Great choice,
Mm.
good one.
Probably also like if I had to name a second one, it's The Last Unicorn.
Okay, I haven't
I
seen that
love
one yet.
that. Oh, you have to look at it too. It's kind of a weird collaboration between Japanese animation and like a German author. I actually don't really know, but it's very cool. I watched it the first time when I was like 6,
Okay,
and then I watched since then I'm watching it probably like every 2 or 3 years and really love it.
yeah, I have some movies I do that with too, and it's funny how you like see how they change for you and not and how you remember how you first saw it, and you take something new away each time, right?
Hmm.
Cool. All right. What's one thing that most people don't know about you?
Yeah, I told you before I like to sing karaoke and I'm actually pretty good at it, I think.
All right. Nice.
And maybe the other one would be that I have 7 names.
7 names. Like not
Yes, yes.
nicknames, but like,
No,
okay,
actual names.
actual
Yeah.
names.
I think nowadays it's actually forbidden in Switzerland, and I think maybe I'm a little bit guilty of why that happened.
Because you're the one person in
Yeah,
Switzerland with 7 names. So
probably.
if it ever comes up in discussion wherever you're going, you know that Philomena was a cause that it's illegal now to have multiple or maybe at least 7 names. But you
Yeah, I think it's now limited to 3, but I'm not
3.
sure.
But you're grandfathered in. or
Sorry?
or you're grandfathered in, meaning like it does the change doesn't apply to
Ah, yeah,
you,
I
but
grandfathered in. Yeah,
okay,
yeah. Oh,
yeah,
cool. I learned a new English expression.
yeah, there you go. Good. And if you're not, we'll edit this portion of the show. um all right, and then you maybe you already shared this with us, but what's your favorite outdoor activity?
Yeah, probably just swimming and walking while listening to audiobooks and petting cats. Like I have had cats my whole life, and now is the first time where I don't have any and I'm very lonely, so I have to go out every few days at least to pet all the neighborhood cats. I know all of them by name, and yeah, I know where they hang out, so
I know
I
where
pick my routes depending on which cat I have to visit today.
I know where
I
you're.
even like one of the neighboring cats likes me so much he like sneaks back to like he follows me into my apartment and it's very hard to convince him to go away. So yeah. But I'm not feeding them. Not never feed them. Otherwise they don't remember where they live.
Oh, but they just love that attention so much that they'll come
Yeah.
to you regardless. They're
Yeah.
just looking for love, not food, which is even better, I guess. But that's funny because I'm like, but petting cats, that's an outdoor activity, and yes, yes, it is.
For me, unfortunately it is, yeah.
All right, and the last one in the staple here on the show is what game are you playing now? Now you said Cult of the Lamb this past weekend, and that based on when we're recording this in the week, it was pretty recent. So, any others that you're playing right now?
Over the weekend, I also played Alba.
Alba, okay.
It's the game from Us Too. They're like a nature adventure. You're a little girl and you're on
Ah,
an
yes,
island,
yep, yep.
and you have to document all the birds and help build the nature park and so. What else? I played a lot of oh God, what's it called? The roguelike, and you're like Ring of Pain
Mm.
on my Switch. A lot, way too much. Um, Trying to crack all the achievements.
Yep.
In playing the Yokai Watch game in Japanese.
Nice. Okay.
And my birthday, my boyfriend said I'm getting a new Pokemon game for my birthday, so I have to hurry. So I'm ready for a new Japanese game. Yeah. I
So,
think that's about it.
well, okay, that's about it. I can't even think of one game I played recently because just feel
You
like
have
I'm
to
so
play
busy.
more games.
I do. I really do. But you know, it will happen, especially very soon. Because we're
Nice.
celebrating a holiday in the U.S. and more holidays to come that everybody will be enjoying with. So time to play is upon us. At any rate,
Cool.
thank you so much for those wonderful
Sure.
answers in the Q box round. But now we're gonna get into our discussion, which honestly I'm really excited about because this is a bit different than the typical stuff that we've discussed and had here on the show. And but I think it's still really important, and I don't know. I feel that we're going to make a lot of discoveries, and maybe you yourself too, Philomena, in terms of what we're talking about today, which is tackling your mission while taking on side quests. And again, I allude back to our long and lengthy introduction, but it was kind of a foundation to for this talk because we went over like a lot of the achievements and everything Stray Fawn Studio has done over a course of basically a high level view over a course of 6 years. But during all that time, Philomena herself has had a lot of side quests going on. So to kick this off, this discussion, I want to come out and saying like obviously for anyone out there and even just a solo dev for that matter, but like running a studio is a lot of work. And for many, focusing attention on other projects outside of running a studio can easily become a distraction. So, I'm curious, what are some of the reasons you decided to take on these side quests that aren't necessarily related to the work and focus of your studio?
Hmm. Yeah, good question. I mean, it all really began while I was still studying game design at my university, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I made Niche as my bachelor project. And even while I was at the university, I was starting to think like, dang, I'm not sure if I'm going to find a job in our games industry because there are really very few jobs out there. And so in my first year while studying, I decided to join the Swiss Game Developers Association to see if I can help build up a more established game industry in these 3 years while I'm still studying,
Okay.
so that I maybe can find a job afterwards. So that was like the initial goal. And yeah, then I basically started helping with organizing exhibitions for at all kinds of different local events, and there I met a lot of developers and stuff like that, and I felt that I really feel it to be part of my mission to help all these people become successful. So it kind of became part of what I wanted to achieve. When I then graduated, I indeed couldn't really find a job. I mean, I like there were some openings, but I was like, no, I'd rather. I think I'll try and contribute my own studio so I can also offer jobs in the future to
Hmm.
all my, because I was like really bummed because a bunch of my classmates, and we were only 15 people, couldn't find a job even though they were very very good. So that kind of made me angry. I wanted to see if I can build up a studio so this happens less in um, in the future. And then that's what we did. And I think the side quests were always there as part of this mission. I always felt, though, that it was also very good to be connected to all these other developers and help them and do stuff with them, because I learned a lot about their approach to development and to marketing and so on. Um, I, by the way, then decided to return to school and do a master's in community building. So then I was even more involved with how to build up a community, not only for our own games, but also like for the association to involve people more and stuff. So this came like my main thing. And I think with the studio at the beginning, it was just me making my bachelor game, right?
Hmm.
And then I slowly encountered some people that wanted to help with the game. So I constantly started replacing myself. So at first I did everything, and then I found an artist who was better than me in art, and then I found a programmer who was better than me in programming. And I think that's what has just been going on since the start. And it seems that I have replaced myself in a lot of things now, so that I don't need to be super, super, super involved in the game for the studio to run well. So I'm just always taking the positions. Also with the marketing, it originally was not something that I wanted to do. I wanted to be a game artist, but then I kind of turned into a game designer instead, and then I kind of turned into the marketing person instead, because those were just the things that nobody else was doing. And now, yeah, I think I'm a little bit stuck at the marketing role because nobody wants to do it in my studio. And I learned to really enjoy it, I think. At the beginning, it was like, it's not that creative, but it's very creative. You have to think about a lot of things. Yeah, and like for the Kickstarter Council, it made a lot of sense to me because Kickstarter is like an integrated process in our studio's design process.
Yep.
So for all three of our games, we crowdfunded them to like validate that there's actually a market.
Hmm.
This is the main reason why we run Kickstarters. And so that made a lot of sense because I want to have a better platform, right? And it also here it helps again. These roles just help to get in touch with people, in touch with other devs, and I've made it a very very big part of my strategy as a studio leader to just have like weekly calls with people and ask them about whatever I think they're doing good and learning and adapting these things and reacting to things I'm hearing a lot. So I think that helped the studio greatly. For the Wings Fund, I think it really helped me to, like, it always helps a game designer, right? And a studio director to play games. So it really broadened my horizon a bit. I was a bit stuck in the strategy simulation genre.
Hmm.
And now with all the games I'm reviewing, I made a step out of it, which I think, yeah, made me more interested in different games. And without knowing, this has been a great preparation also now for the publisher that we want to start, right? Because now I've seen a lot of pitch decks, evaluated a lot of budgets, and so on. So now I can think about what kind of games I would want to publish and like yeah what the budget would be, what the requirements for us would be, and so on. So it all kind of is connected to each other, and I think starting a publisher again will be great for the studio because we will have more relationships with platforms, more relationship with content creators and so on, and a lot more marketing experience. So I think in the end a lot of these things are benefiting the studio.
Yeah, I mean, there's really a lot to unpack here because I mean, I think to really summarize things, it's all about how, even though at face value some of these things might not necessarily be directly associated with a particular project or other focus, right? But
Mhm.
overall, it's they are in their own little way, and it starts kind of like painting that whole picture as you start growing. Um, One thing I thought was really cool what you did here too was how you like initially started laying out in your thought process in terms of, hey, why were you doing some things? Because I mean, you took it as far back as when you were in school, and it wasn't so much
Mhm.
about starting a studio as much as it was, hey, look, I know the industry here is not there's not much of a presence. I don't
Mm.
necessarily know where a job is. And then it was
Mhm.
more of trying to overcome that challenge. And in that process, you went from trying to address that challenge, which is, hey, let's maybe I can help contribute to creating more jobs for other people like me. I mean, yeah, even though there's 15 in my class and X number of people coming out of colleges every year,
Mhm.
that's still that they're still with the lack of maybe presence and stuff. That's still extremely competitive for jobs where I want to
Mhm.
where I'm residing, and then
Mhm.
from that process too, so you get more involved, and then you start realizing like, oh, I'm more involved. I'm obviously like extremely excited and passionate about the field that I'm in, and well, I want to kind of now contribute to others, not just for my own goal, or even the greater goal for other people, but also that there was just another means to help, and it was more about kind of like feeling that passion, which then again fueled your main objective. And then from there, it's just why I like how you laid out that path is because I think, and kind of the reason why I asked the question the way I did is we have this mindset of like, hey, we could always be doing too much and not enough of the stuff to focus on. And
Mhm.
obviously there's points to be better focus on, but it was just really cool to hear how that path kind of evolved into all these different things that are now, some of which you mentioned are major contributing factors to the strategy you take with game development, with that whole process, with your marketing. I mean, it aids in so many components, and
Mhm.
it's just really interesting to hear that perspective and that thought process that you went through. And I'm sure there was trials and errors, of course, but it was just really fascinating, good to hear, because I don't think we always put ourselves in those positions in where we're essentially trying to create our own opportunities. It was just exactly what you were doing.
Mhm. It's still trial and error. Yeah, sometimes I feel like I absolutely nailed it and wow, this week is going perfect. Everything is in the place it's supposed to be, and I'm getting a lot of stuff done. And then there's other weeks where just everything is on fire and I
Yep.
should be everywhere at the same time. And then I'm like, what the decisions that I've made have brought me here and why and
Well,
yeah.
let's talk about that a little bit in terms of like feeling like you have to be everywhere, because
Mhm.
obviously that's not possible, until we maybe come up with some technology that allows us to. But for now, it's not.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, right. Because we don't need
No.
we don't need that.
Splitting my brain in two and then both get half the attention.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
So I want to talk a little bit about like kind of like making time and balancing projects, because I mean, no, if you say yes to something, you're saying no to a lot of other things. So
Yes.
that's a big deal there. So let's ask this, because I mean, clearly you're very focused with your objectives and everything else. But it can still be a challenge to stay focused, especially when you're involved with so many different things, especially those that you're passionate about. And not only that, it's also really important to keep a healthy energy level. So I'm a little bit curious, and you kind of I think alluded to this a little bit in the introduction. But how do you maintain your studio's objectives while making time for other projects and still having enough time to recharge?
Hmm. I think my studio is just really good. Like, I think I could just go away and let them do the game,
Okay, so
and
let
it
me
would
ask
be a
real
good
quick.
game.
How do they get to be good though? Let's dig
Yeah.
in a little bit more.
Yeah, by just finding people that are not only very talented. So, like, maybe that's important to say, all the people in our studio started as juniors.
Mhm.
So, like, we don't have a single senior position because there is basically nobody, almost nobody in Switzerland that is a senior. Um, so, yeah, they kind of learned everything from zero. And I think when we chose which people to hire, we really wanted them to be like quick learners and grow into their roles, and try to give them some time to do that. Try to like give them a lot of decisions to make from the start. So like me and Micha, we are not like just making the studio's decisions and then telling everybody, but like we're discussing everything together. usually. Sometimes we come up with a suggestion and then we discuss it. But yeah, I have no doubt that they could run the studio without me at this point.
Mm.
I think for the Wandering Village, what my I mean, I was the game designer together with Arno, our other game designer, for the game, and I'm the vision keeper, the project lead. So when I'm gone for too long, maybe things start derailing a little bit because people are just working on whatever they want to work and are kind of not pulling on a common string. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's fine. I could be gone for like a month or something and then come back and the game would be better, but then maybe it would be time to like regroup a little bit, plan some more, and tell everybody like what the new focus is now, so they pull into the same direction. But other than that, they're very independent of me. I think the only thing I'm really, really needed to do is doing the marketing at this point. So yeah, very cool bunch of people, and I also just trust them a lot. So I know that all of them are in their fields. They are better than me anyway, so I should be listening to them. So yeah.
So I would say then, from everything you shared, I mean, it's great that you have that at your studio and confidence and trust. But it sounds like then just a good thing to that has led you guys to kind of foster this type of culture and community
Mhm.
is simply from
Absolutely.
communication. It sounds like a
Hmm.
big part of it.
Yes, absolutely. So we also have a same salary policy. So everybody just earns the same at the studio. And also, like, the bonus works the same for everybody. So if you have been at the studio for 3 years, you get the same bonus as the founders. So it's not even like me and Micha have any special position within the studio. Everybody knows that they're like they're making their own fortune,
Mm.
and not just the managers are gonna get everything from them. So they know, um, yeah, they want to keep their jobs.
Yep.
they want to keep the studio going, right? And so they're very devoted also, and it just, yeah, it feels like one big, pretty level play field for everybody, and I really like to work that way.
Nice. Now, speaking of level playing fields in terms of like other things, I'm curious how like in terms of let's say like making time for new things, especially whether or not they're related to your studio's mission or not. New things in themselves can come with frustrations, and a lot of times can also require stepping out of your comfort zone. So
I live outside of my
you
comfort
live
zone.
okay. So answer me this then: how do you go about tackling new things? Maybe if they even say seem a little frightening, like how do you do it?
I'm very used to it by
You
now.
okay?
I don't know, like, I think everything gets into your, like, you get used to everything. At the beginning, I was so scared of public speaking.
Mm.
Like, I remember my first time giving a public talk about an even earlier game that I made, like, while I was studying with some friends. And there was a newspaper report about, like, the event, and it mentioned my presentation especially as being very nervous. I'm like, God damn it, do you have to write a newspaper article about me being nervous at my first presentation? Just leave me alone. And yeah, from there, I've just done it so many times that at this point, I'm just very comfortable. And I think that's the same with like making scary decisions. They just got scarier and scarier over time. So by now, I'm very much used to the regular scary amount.
Mm.
I mean, just for example, The Wandering Village was supposed to come out a year earlier, and then we had quite a bit of hype around the game. So we were like, maybe. And we had one more year of money. So we were like, maybe we should just use all of this money and invest it into the game and make it as good as we can and make localization for it and use a bit of a marketing budget and so on. So at the time the game was released, our bank account, I mean, at the time it was released, we were already sure that it would be do kind of okay because it had 500,000 wish lists
Right.
at
Yeah.
the point. But still, like, we used all our resources, and at the time it came out, we were like, our bank account was on zero. And so the lowest point of our bank account and the highest point of our bank account ever are within 20 days of each other. So it was very scary, and everybody was pretty scared at the studio, and we were very relieved when it all worked out. I mean, we knew the game would make enough money, so that we can deliver everything we promised in the Kickstarter and add some more content, but like we weren't sure if it was going to finance our next game project or if this was kind of it. So, yeah. I actually wish, like, now that the Wandering Village is out, I could actually calm down a little bit and like chill and come back into my comfort zone. But apparently, I'm not used to being in my comfort zone anymore. So now, like, just 1 month after the launch, I was like, okay, we're starting a publisher now, which is also very much out of my comfort zone. So I don't know. I think you get used to it if you do it enough.
Yeah, and I think this is interesting, and you painted us a picture here with some contrast. I mean, starting out, you were saying how public speaking at first like could be very frustrating and such, or just nerve wracking, and to the point where even someone called out in a newspaper article to say, "Oh yeah, she's really nervous." I mean,
Yeah.
but I mean, do you think it's let's say if we're going to paint that particular scenario, very black and white, based off of that newspaper article, would you let's and I'm not saying it was, but let's just call that a failure, right? In quotations, meaning
Yes.
you didn't do well because clearly you were frustrated and people knew you were frustrated or knew you were
Yes.
nervous, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But like, would you have rather had that experience than if like it went really well? Because it's like, I'm just looking at it from a learning experience, but I want to know like how it was for you. Was it a learning experience? How do you think that helped drive you further?
Yeah, I think so. Also, like one thing I started doing maybe 10 years ago or so is whenever I noticed I'm scared of something and I shouldn't really be that scared of it, I have to do it. It's awful. For example, um, like, I don't know why, but I really don't like to bother people with my extra wishes. So, like, just going to a restaurant and saying, "Oh, but could I please have, I don't know, an extra, an extra little bit of salad sauce?" Or I don't know why, but I really don't like it. And so whenever I feel something like that, I'm forcing myself to do it all the time so that I get used to it. And then I'm always noticing myself like, oh, I don't want to do this. And no, dang it, now I have to do it. Or like telling somebody that they have a very nice skirt, you know. I'm like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't. I don't know how this person would then react. And damn it, now I have to do it. Then I have to go there and tell them they have a nice skirt. And that I think also really helped with getting out of the comfort zone thing.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. I like that a lot because think about it. Like you're talking about such simple things, right?
Yeah.
Telling someone they like, have a nice skirt, but you're right. I mean, I'm sure everybody goes through that same process where they're thinking, "Hey, I would like to do that, but like, I don't know. What might they think? What might it's like?" And then it's that inner critic that comes up saying like, "Well, what if they think that you're like, I don't know, just being a creeper or just being
Yeah.
weird or something else like that?" But what usually comes out of telling someone that they have a nice skirt? What usually is the end result?
Yeah, they are happy and say thank you.
Yeah, and they, in some cases, they who knows, they could have been having a horrible day, and you just made their day.
Yeah,
That just changed their
absolutely.
whole
Like,
perspective.
yeah, whenever it's like something where I feel like, oh, this is stupid, I really shouldn't be so scared, then that's the point in time where I have to.
Yeah, and what's really interesting, I think, about this that goes right back into your other example, the recent one with like, your development and everything. You guys had that basically not really a nest egg, but like you guys had that chunk of money that you were comfortable with, and you were in a position where you felt, hey, it's okay if we release the game now. But instead, you're like, no, let's take that a little bit of a risk here. Let's get out of our comfort zone and put more back into the game. And I'm sure there was other factors that that kind of gave you some confidence, but there was still a big level of uncertainty. because
Yeah.
no one knew how it was going to play out. You guys definitely didn't know. No one knew. I
I'm
mean, but you,
always so uncertain about everything. Just for example, like our Kickstarter campaigns, when we always have very low funding goals, right? Sorry for interrupting you, by the way.
mm, go
We
ahead.
always have pretty low funding goals, and people then usually think like, oh, it's just so they can get funded quicker. No, it's actually my insecurity whether we can even hit this very low goal, which should be clear to everybody that we can hit it, except to myself. So I have a lot of imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's still super interesting though because it's like I think and I kind of what I'm connecting here and the point I'm making, I guess, and probably your own realization too, is simply that, you start with these little things and you're like, okay, I thought that, I got to act on it, type
Yes.
thing. And let's face it, and this is another thing I think a lot of people forget about. Sometimes just staying committed to a decision is better than not making a decision at all. And
Mm-hmm.
but in doing so though, you're clearly getting out of your comfort zone, like
Mm-hmm.
saying, "Hey, you have a nice skirt. You look great today." All those things. But it's like that whole that continuation in that mindset that you have, that cool idea and suggestion you shared with just, if I thought about it, I'm just going to go ahead and commit about it. I don't want to
Yeah.
like think about it like too long, especially things like that
Yeah.
lead you into becoming more comfortable and making tougher decisions like, hey, let's take all this money we have saved up and just put it back into the game. And I know it's a little risky, but let's do it. And I mean, in this case for you guys, it ended up paying off, but I think you kind of, you at least did a lot of things to put yourself in a position where, yeah, you put yourself in, out of your comfort zone, but in doing so, you were able to reap a lot more of the rewards. Because face it, let's say you didn't, you released the game when you did. Do you think you would have the same type of outcome a year ago than what you did a few months ago when you released Wandering Village?
No. I mean, people are still now already still complaining that it doesn't have enough content. So
So
I
definitely
think
not.
that I think that if we released it earlier, we would have had quite a bit of backlash. Yeah. I mean, the problem is always when you already have a bunch of hype, right? And then people are expecting something, and people are, I don't know, don't care that much if it's labeled as early access. If it doesn't live up to their expectations from seeing the trailer and stuff, then you're gonna get the backlash. And I think we would.
Mm,
I mean, we still are getting a little bit of backlash, but I think we would have gotten quite a bit if we launched it that much earlier. Yeah.
yeah. No, and again, I love just how you outlined these things, your processes, and how, you know, how even just a simple, what seems like a simple mindset can really attribute to these types of decisions that are really leading
Mhm.
to like growth and just lots of cool things happening. Um,
I agree.
Now, I want to kind of go back a little bit here to the side quests a little bit, because I have a feeling that the side quests, as you did share earlier a little bit, are kind of contributing a lot more than what we may think, what listeners may think, in terms of how they can really help attribute, even if there are indirectly, to growing and doing a lot of things that are a core focus for your studio or for your development goals. So obviously, outside of some recognition, you probably get some recognition, and I'm not necessarily you, just in general. If you're doing all these other things, like, okay, Forbes 30 under 40, yeah, you get some recognition. But outside of those things, what would you say are the main benefits that you found from just being involved with these different side quests and organizations and such?
Think speaking about the recognition, I mean, I don't really care if it's just my face on the newspaper,
Hmm.
but what they really helped with is we really got, just for example, as you said for the Forbes listing,
Hmm.
there was a lot of coverage in the Swiss media for it, and I was like
Mm.
invited to TV shows and stuff. And yeah, that's cool for me, but I think what it is actually cool for is getting politicians to notice the Swiss game scene more
Right.
because it's in their Sunday newspaper, so you can't ignore me.
Yep.
You know, which you have been doing for years before. And yeah, I think that helped opening the path a little bit. We're still not there yet, but I think it opened some more ears to like our plea to get a better funding in Switzerland for games. And I think it also helps a lot with getting credibility
Mm.
for you and also your studio. I mean, at this, it helped me a lot just also like for biz dev. So I'm also doing our business development
Hmm.
at the studio. I think there they need me a little bit too, though maybe they could do it on their own. But at this point, I have like established a lot of connections through like you get introduced by other connections that you made. You speak at some conference, and the conference director knows somebody at Epic or something,
Hmm.
gives you an intro there. So our studio now established contacts with pretty much all of the bigger gaming platforms, which is awesome. And yeah, currently, like we're also working with Microsoft to get the game on Xbox and so on. And I don't think all of these opportunities would have happened if I didn't do so many things to get connected with people over the years. So that was definitely a benefit for the studio.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure if if we really had the time and to sit down, you could probably think of any number of other things that happened that you that don't even come, top of mind, and
Yes,
such. But
definitely.
and it's funny because I know sometimes we may approach these things like, oh, but it's so much extra work and everything else, and I have these things to do. I mean, you just outlined like a big reason for how lots of things can happen. I mean, come on, when you can get noticed by your government, especially if one of your side quests is to make more happen. Not even maybe it's not even a side quest. It's also related to a direct mission of getting more recognition from the government for it to have more of or a better presence and funding and all these other things to happen. I mean, just by making this one accomplishment, it's not so much about you I mean, it can help you and your studio and everything else, but now it's about everybody else, and it just it's so funny how like symbiotic and expansive just
Yeah,
one thing can be. Um,
absolutely. That's my motto with everything. Try it to be symbiotic and
yeah,
try
yeah.
everything to be connected in some way. That usually also helps.
Now, let me ask you this, too, because and this is maybe a little bit more focused and kind of goes back to some of our discussion earlier with your team and stuff. But like, what ways do you think that your involvement with all these organizations and other things has led you to become a better leader for your studio?
Yeah, I think it definitely helped because you're working with all kinds of different people. They all have different problems. You see organizations and other studios and what kind of problems they have and how they solve them and so on. Yeah, I think my perspective has just become quite a bit broader than if I had just been working in the studio. So I hope they benefited from it in some way.
Yeah, because I mean, when you're so used to seeing all these, like you said, these different perspectives and everything, I think it's another like it's almost a subconscious way of developing greater empathy too, and all
Yes.
sorts of things like and and there's probably things that you don't even might not be completely aware of, and then later through maybe a conversation at the studio you're like, oh, I see where I can maybe attribute where my thinking or how we
Hmm.
came up with the solution there came from my involvement with other things.
Hmm. I think it also really helps to see like what these other entities' goals are. At the
Mm.
beginning, when I was just starting out and made my very first game, even before I started studying, I was just like, oh yeah, I'm making this game, and then the YouTubers have to play my game because it's my game, you know? And now I'm like, no, they absolutely are they're not even playing it for themselves. Usually they're mostly playing it for their audience. So what can I give them to make it more interesting for their audience, which in turn will benefit them? Just one thing. So that's one example why we started to give YouTubers giveaway keys, for examples,
Hmm.
because that's something they can give to their viewers. Or as a game fund, what is their goal? Or like what is Kickstarter's goal? What with the platform? And yeah, it's kind of it's a lot different. All these things are like always adding new insights to me. Or what's a platform's goal? Why do they have like a, I don't know, why do they have like a PlayStation Plus? How are they benefiting from this? And so on. That really helps you to also become better at business development because you understand the needs of the party that you work with, and then you can like lean into that and adapt your offers so it's more attractive for them.
You know, you actually reminded me of one thing I wanted to call out to as well, where even back a few minutes ago, and even now with saying that, having this understanding of different perspectives, understanding of empathy, I mean, it really allows you to stand out more. So, for example, you said with, hey, I reach out to YouTubers or influencers or whatever. Well, what is
Mm-hmm.
it that they really care about? Because it's not
Mm-hmm.
my game. I mean, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
to a little bit of a level, yeah, they do, but their thinking is this game's awesome, so my audience is going to like it. So,
Yeah.
and by doing everything, being mindful of that and catering the most you can with there, you're going to stand out more than that other team that's like, hey, play my game.
Yeah.
It's just like do this for me.
Exactly.
It's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
okay, but it's my audience, and it's funny because I can relate to that. I get a lot of requests from people wanting to be on the show that are outside of games, and they have like, and it's like, and I'm like, do you guys even know who listens to my show? Because I don't think you
Mm-hmm.
do,
Yeah.
and it's like
Mm-hmm.
similar types of situations. Like, how are you being mindful of how is it going to be mutually beneficial? The
Mm-hmm.
other thing too is with the biz dev and marketing. I mean, we like you said, we all talk about to some degree like what are the tactics and what are even the great strategies of how do we approach these things. But with some of these side quests, I mean, for some people in terms of like biz dev with meeting new connections or with like marketing approaches, it can make all the difference in terms of just standing out more. Like you said, I mean, the Forbes thing, it made it into the papers. You were being asked or other people. I mean, you are clearly standing out among a lot of other people or studios or whoever else just from that one thing alone, which is still aiding in your own mission, aiding in your other passions and side quests. So I think it's really interesting to make note of because when we're talking about game marketing, when we're talking about just game business, sometimes I think, and it's so easy to do, I can relate, where you just get so honed in on your little bubble, I guess, and what that means to stand out and everything, when the reality is sometimes these other things are so much, they seem so much further from what the goals are, but the reality is, okay, maybe at a quick glance, they might seem that way, but you're really going to be standing out much greater than anyone else who's thinking of that very super awesome tactical approach type deal. Um, so
Mm-hmm.
it's just I don't know. I just find it interesting how you led us through your story and everything, and how everything is so connected and everything to the point where
Yeah, it is.
it
Kind
all
of is.
has
Yeah.
it all has purpose and meaning, and on top of it can be just a different way of standing out, but still being highly relative to what the goals and focuses are.
Yeah. I am hoping that will be. Yeah. I've like for some time. I also, or I'm still sometimes. I'm like, everything is disconnected from each other and it doesn't make sense. And then there are these moments where everything just clicks together. And I'm like, no, everything was supposed to be exactly like this and led to this specific moment or this specific decision.
Mm.
So it's not always easy to tell where things are coming from, as you say.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's I think again it goes back into the whole comfort zone, and it can be a little scary where you're thinking like, but does this even relate? Does this matter? And I mean, and that's when, but I think through that process, that trial and error, and some of those mindsets you shared with us is what
Mm.
really can help validate that for you.
Hmm. Yeah,
Now, be,
absolutely.
before we close here, I do want to ask this one thing, and I'm sure you already shared some examples, but I just would love to dive into this just a little bit more because I think this is just as important as everything else that we discussed here too. So, in addition to the professional growth that we talked about from all these side quests and everything else, what would you say, like, in what ways have your side quests also helped you grow personally?
Yeah, I've definitely become bolder, I
Mm.
think. So I'm like I'm a very introvert, and I would say I'm also a pretty shy person by nature. And a lot of people that meet me now are like, "No, you are not. You're standing there in front of 1,000 people and talking. You are not a shy introvert." And I'm like, "No, it's just practice. It deep inside, that's still who I am actually." So yeah, I think it showed me that I wanted to like be this person who would be able to stand there and enjoy standing there and giving their presentation, and I just made myself into that. So I think we can really change a lot about ourselves, what we want. This realization has also helped me a lot. So currently, for example, I'm trying to work on not being so impatient. I have like a tendency to interrupt people and to just be generally impatient when something doesn't happen. And now yeah, let's check in again in a year if it's gotten better. Yeah, it just showed me that I can change most things about myself if I want them to change. What else? Definitely made me more gave me more empathy
Mm.
for people and their reasons. And before I was just like often thinking, like, ah, you're such a dumbass. And
Yeah.
now, nowadays, I'm like thinking, but why are you being a dumbass?
Right. Yeah.
Probably has a reason why you were being like that and acting like that. And usually, when you figure it out, that helps a lot because then you start talking to the person in the way that they like. Sometimes it's like, ah, okay, this is just a person that really needs the validation because they're very insecure and that's why they're like talking up to you when they're dissatisfied. And then you just like start to throw in some, oh yeah, thank you for doing that. And then you know, oh, this person just really needs that, and then your problem is gone. And it's incredible how many of my interpersonal problems I resolved with this. Like I don't care if I say thank you or if I'm being more clear and candid with another person who really needs that, like needs clearer instructions or anything. And yeah, it really helped my interpersonal relationships, I think.
That's it, and that's awesome and great to hear. And it is because I think a lot of the times when we think about doing these things, thinking about these types of side quests, it's always leading in for, not always, but I think we tend to have. I'm speaking very generally for people here, but just we generally have this mindset of it being self-serving, like like I said, like as maybe some means to stand out, but leading and again, I mean, at first, I mean, some of the reasons, I mean, again, now I'm going to go black and white here. At the very beginning, you're the very beginning of your journey. You were talking about how I'm going to get more involved here so I can make more things happen so I can have a job. And then, okay, my classmates can
Yeah.
have a job, right? So it
Yeah.
was going in mind with like kind of a more self-serving attitude. And there's nothing wrong with that. You got to take care of yourself. But through that process and journey, you're realizing how these things can affect you even personally to the degree of which it's now serving others and everything else, and then coming back to how having these understandings and everything else, just you realize the importance of how it makes you grow as a person, and then and again it still contributes to everything else that you're doing too, doesn't
Hmm.
it?
Hmm.
It's I guess the word of the day for this show is for this episode is just the connectivity of everything.
Yes, absolutely. The
So
synergies.
yeah, synergies. That's another good one too. I like that one better. Good call. But no, so it's again just great to hear how these things have contributed in so many different ways, but also even on a personal level. I mean, it just seems like sometimes the even though it might be a distraction, and like you said earlier, there's lots of distractions and controlled
Mm.
distractions and quotations there,
Mm.
but those things can often be times be rewarding
Hmm.
distractions. We just might not know what it is right away.
Agreed. I
So
would say in the retrospect, I don't regret my distractions.
that great quote right there, folks. All right. Well, in light of everything we talked about, I mean, there's probably lots we could take, but I would love for you to provide maybe a few tips or suggestions that you would recommend our listeners today based on our discussion.
Yeah, I think we already covered a lot of them. Try to get out of your comfort zone. You will get used to it. And like at the beginning, maybe your comfort zone is a tiny little space, and over time it will become a huge, huge, yeah, a huge, huge area where you can move in freely and you will feel much less restricted. Then really try and connect with other devs.
Hmm.
If you see somebody that is doing really well and you're thinking like, oh, I just wish I did this well, then don't think like, ah, this stupid person, I wish I was the one doing well.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, just reach out and ask them, hey, can you maybe tell me why you're doing so well? And you can still think they're stupid if they don't reply. But after, if they reply and help you, usually that, for me, I've done that quite a lot. Like sometimes I was also pretty jealous, like, oh no, this person got an award, or I don't know what I wanted. And then I tried to make it a habit to always congratulate them, because then I thought like, oh man, if I was the person winning this award, and I would think like, oh no, great, now everybody else is like begrudging me and thinking that I'm stupid and they want to have it, then I don't want to have it either. So so then I was like, I just started retweeting and liking everything that I thought like, oh, I would like to have this for myself, and congratulate them. And if they did something that I just couldn't figure out how and why and what they did, I made it a habit to ask them if they could tell me. And I've learned so much from these people. I learned way more from these people than from all my internet research and whatever. So that's the easiest way for you to get somewhere. And yeah, help other people out. So once you're maybe in a little bit of a position and you have been helped, don't forget to also give that back to other people.
Yeah, because I
Or
mean,
even if you're not there yet, you can still help other people. It's really cool to see that, like, some game studios that are also solo devs that started out at the same point as us, also made it like into a more professional, bigger studio size. Some of them are way successful, way more successful than us, and we still feel connected because we started out at the same time and like gave each other shout outs and advice.
mm,
And even though one maybe took it further than the other, this initial first connection from starting out together will never go away, I think.
yeah, that's a really key thing to call out there too, because again, it can get returned in tenfold, and again, you don't know if it will or how it
Mhm.
will, but that's besides the point. It will come back, like believe in karma, whatever. It will come back to reward you. So great.
My mom, sorry, one more thing.
Go
My
ahead.
mom gave me a very cute, like, little wooden board to put on your door, like as a welcome thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not on my door, but it's here behind in my room, and it's a German quote, and I really, really think it's part of my whole like way of living. I'm gonna read it in German and I'm gonna translate it. Wer anderen eine Blume sät, blüht selber auf. It's like based on another German saying that is called wer anderen eine Grube gräbt, fällt selbst hinein. And that so basically the original German thing says, who digs a hole will fall in themselves.
Hmm.
And the new quote that has kind of been changed up from this is who um, who plants a flower for somebody else will start to bloom themselves.
I
And I
love
think
that.
it's very, very cute.
That is so good, and I'm so
Right.
I'm so glad that you shared that because I think it really puts a unique perspective on things. So awesome. Well, can't thank you enough for this discussion, for the tips and everything else. But before we completely close today, Philomena, please share with us, like, what are ways people can get in touch with you? How do they find out more about Strafon's studio? And where can they find out more about Wandering Village and everything else?
Yeah, so we have a Twitter. Hopefully it's not up in flames by the time that this podcast goes out, but that's a great way to reach us. Or you join the Wandering Village Discord. There you get a lot of info about the Wandering Village, and you can also just send me a DM. Or you can always just reach me at philo@strafonstudio.com if you want to reach out via email. Yeah, happy to talk.
Excellent. So please, if you're not familiar with it already, check out Wandering Village, or at least the Discord, or even just say hi on Twitter. And yeah, I mean, Philo's all up for questions and connecting, obviously. So you can reach her out that way. But again, Philo, thank you so much for being here today and sharing all this. I mean, I don't think these types of conversations happen enough, and I'm just simply grateful that you are able to go in such great length and detail and sharing your own experiences and how they can really contribute to meeting all your goals and then some. So can't thank you enough for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey everyone, thank you for listening to another episode of Indie Game Movement. I'm Andrew Pappas, your host, and the show's producer is Mustafa Price. If you enjoy and value the show's content, you can support us even more by going to Patreon and visiting www.patreon.com/IGM podcast and select the tier that best suits your needs. Show notes for this episode can be found by visiting rengenmarketing.com, the number episode of the show. Rengen Marketing is a consulting marketing company that helps indie devs with their marketing efforts. Whether you need guidance with your game's marketing strategy or could use a free marketing plan template, then please visit www.rengenmarketing.com and take action. A special thanks to Dakota Saw for Season 2's opening theme and Melissa Gellis for the new logo design. And as always, thanks for being such great listeners, and we'll see you next time on Indie Game Movement.